Almost too much action for a Wednesday night. Where to begin? St James's Park probably. A 4-3 with 2 goals in injury time. It's just the kind of advert the Premier League needed after those 0-0s the other week. Dr Tottenham leave it late but give Antoine Semenyo the perfect way to say goodbye. Romero puts in his most commanding performance on Instagram. It's all bleak at Spurs, but should they hold their nerve with Thomas Frank? Liam Rosenior is in the stands to see another Chelsea red card as Harry Wilson shines again for Fulham. Man City drop more points, 3 draws in a row now. Darren Fletcher's in the dugout and plays a back 4, but it's not enough to beat Burnley. There's hair pulling at Everton, Wolves unbeaten in 3, and Brentford are up to 5th. Ashley says, Max, 4-3 Newcastle, the perfect score for the big man on such a bad news day. As much as I don't like the Newcastle regime, I'll be happy for them today, for Keegan and that score. Yeah, Newcastle 4, Leeds 3. And at the 90th minute, Lars, this was going to be how much pressure is Eddie Howe under? And then it's not that question anymore.
Well, does that in itself speak to the ridiculousness that is inherent in some of those sort of narrative decisions that we make? You know, one goal, suddenly the whole picture changes. Maybe that means the picture was wrong to begin with. I don't know. But it was one of those things where the pictures at full time with the celebrations and the limbs, as the young people would call it. It did look like an extraordinary place to be. Like, it looked like an incredible memory for the people who were there. And it makes you one of those things that, like, there are cliches in football. And I think the sort of the atmosphere, the life, the feeling of St James's Park at a moment like that is one of the football cliches that I suspect does live up to its name. I mean, it looked incredible. And I feel a little bad for Leeds, especially because of the nature of the 3-3 goal, which is one of those penalties that drive me insane.
Unbearable. Yeah.
I don't want to take it straight to that territory, Max, but I felt like it deserved a mention. But Newcastle, of course, deserve credit for the way they kept going, the way they kept at it and got the win in the end.
Yeah, and a brilliant the turn, Johnny, from Scotland's finest Harvey Barnes is brilliant.
It is. Barnes had a great night. Barnes always seems to play well against Leeds. But, you know, there were great performances all over the pitch. You know, Bruno Guimaraes, who scored the equaliser and I think set up the second. But yeah, I mean, Barnes is one of those players who I think he gets a bit of an unfair rap amongst a lot of Newcastle fans, certainly wider observers. But does seem to contribute. He does always seem to contribute in big moments. So yeah, that was a nice one for him.
Barnes actually does have 7 goals now in 8 in the league against Leeds, which is weird. I mean, these sort of... I'm one of those people. I like stats. I like XG. I don't really believe in head-to-head records because they seem inherently ridiculous. But you look at something like that and you just... Does he really hate Leeds? I mean, because he's from... I don't think he's from anywhere geographically that would suggest that he has a particular animus with Leeds. And he came through at Leicester. I don't think there's a big Leeds-Leicester rivalry. But Harvey Barnes just really turns it on against Leeds. Maybe they get his goat.
Yeah, a lovely cross from Guimaraes for the Joe Linton goal. I mean, hard to analyse games like this, I think, Barry. Apart from, I think both teams really contributed. It feels harsh. It feels really harsh on Leeds, actually, who had been on a brilliant run.
Yeah, I think both teams are to be commended on probably serving up the game of the night on a night where there was 8 Premier League games and I think 7 of them were good. The Villa Palace was the only one that didn't have any goals and wasn't very entertaining. Obviously, the players didn't know what was going on elsewhere, but a really entertaining game. Leeds must have been gutted to lose in that manner. I wouldn't necessarily say they deserved to lose. James Justin had a header against the bar that was unlucky because it didn't quite fall to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But a tremendously entertaining game for everyone present at St James's Park. The home crowd got the result they wanted. They're obviously going to be sad because it's been announced, as you alluded to, that Kevin Keegan is ill with stomach cancer. Obviously, we wish him well. And I think Leeds can be kind of fed up insofar as the first and last goals they conceded, I think, were completely avoidable. It stemmed from them just failing repeatedly to clear the ball when it was there to be cleared, and Newcastle took full advantage.
Bob says no questions, just to get well for King Kev. There was a really nice show of support for Kevin Keegan before kickoff on the big screen at St James's. His family said in a statement, Kevin was recently admitted to hospital for further evaluation of ongoing abdominal symptoms. These investigations have revealed a diagnosis of cancer for which Kevin will undergo treatment. Kevin is grateful to the medical team for their intervention and ongoing care. During this difficult time, the family are requesting privacy and will be making no further comment. And breaking this morning, which news the three of you probably don't know, and you'd have seen Gabby Logan left Match of the Day sort of mid-episode. Father Terry Yorath, former Leeds and Wales midfielder, has died at the age of 75 following a short illness. Incredibly sad. He had a 9-year spell at Leeds from 1967. He won the First Division title in 74 and a runners-up medal in the FA Cup, European Cup and Cup Winners' Cup as well. His children all said in a statement, to most he was a revered footballing hero, but to us he was dad, a quiet, kind and gentle man. Our hearts are broken, but we take comfort knowing that he will be reunited with our brother Daniel. So we obviously send our deepest sympathies to them. Back to the football and to the vitality. Connor says, what can Robbie Keane achieve this season as interim manager at Tottenham Hotspur? I mean, before we do Tottenham, Johnny, we should say this is one of those, you couldn't script it. You could script it. You would script it like this moment for Antoine Semenyo to score in the winner in injury time, to get, substituted and get that ovation, have a lap of honour as well. And credit to him for sort of doing the reverse Alexander Isak and playing right up until his medical, basically.
Yeah, I honestly, you have to love him for that. And he has always been that sort of player who somehow senses the occasion and can perform for it and can gild it. There are certain players who they're all about process and doing the things, doing the things every week that need to be done. And there are certain players who could do that, but then when the moment requires them to make a show of themselves, basically, he can do it. And I think there is something that I think only fans of smaller clubs will really grasp, which is this: that when you get a player who is as good as he is, the clock is already ticking in a way, and you know that your time with this player is going to be so fleeting and short, and you're not going to get them at their peak, but you might not see someone like that player again for think Birmingham and how fondly they think of Jude Bellingham or Reading and Michael Olise. These players make memories that last for decades and generations even, and they're going to go at some point. And to have that moment and not have it, to have it perfect, last minute winner, like 96th minute winner against Spurs, and then he gets his substitution and then he takes the ovation of the crowd. There is something really poignant about that. And I think, it's a real tribute to Semenyo, that his professionalism and the regard in which he holds the club and his fans, that he did want to keep going right until that last minute, and he wanted to keep playing.
Should it be that remarkable? I mean, I don't think it should.
Well, I think it's fun. We've seen lots of players who have played until they've played until their transfer, and they obviously don't want to get injured. They don't want to, they're a little bit sort of 75-25 in challenges, and
which
they're sort of
ironically will almost certainly give you a greater chance of being injured. But I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
There's a thing to be said for release clauses, though, speaking about that, because it takes away a lot of the sort of players don't have to go on strike to force a move to get this sort of. I mean, if you have a release clause, that's a value that both you and the club kind of agreed on, then that kind of smooths out the process, and you don't have that problem.
But I think you make a really good point, Johnny, about being a lower league fan. And I mean, maybe it might be slightly different for Bournemouth because they're in the same division as Man City, but of course they are sort of eons apart in size. But the pride you feel of that player going on. And so, for example, when Dion went to Manchester United for £1 million from Cambridge United, we couldn't believe it, £1 million. And whenever he scored for United, or even when he went on for Coventry and Villa, or if you saw Cambridge players in the Premier League, like Claridge, or even players that didn't have amazing careers, there's you do feel like real pride, especially if they have come through, as a young player at your club. I think it's a really, really good point. I feel for Thomas Frank here, Lars, because Petrovic makes a brilliant save. You talk about, if those moments don't happen, the narrative changes at St James's Park. I know the narrative already exists here with Frank, but like Petrovic makes a great save from Van der Ven. Spurs actually were okay in this game. They weren't brilliant. And I know Bournemouth had been out without a win in 10 or 11 or whatever it was. But that Semeyno strike is also brilliant. Like, you don't expect him to score from that. And then it is different to a defeat here.
I do agree with that. And that this wasn't... I've been jumping up and down on Frank and Tottenham's head quite enthusiastically recently, because I think they're very bad and I don't think they're going to get better. But this was not a terrible performance. Bournemouth gave a good account of themselves against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. They were decent against Arsenal. Like, there have been signs that they've been improving. And I concur in terms of the chances that were created. It could have gone either way. But it still ends up being a game where, like, the expected vibes were in the negative for Spurs, because they lose, because you have this silly business with the coffee mug, which I really don't think matters, but I think it's going to annoy a lot of people either way. Thomas Frank was depicted drinking from a cup that had an Arsenal crest on it, which is a suboptimal visual for an under-pressure Tottenham manager.
The optics are bad.
The optics are not ideal. It absolutely does not matter on any level, but the optics are not ideal. And then you also have, speaking of optics, you have both Mickey van de Ven and Pedro Porro confronting members of the away support after the game, not knowing what was said. I have no idea what the background was or the justification, but it's still one of those things that don't look ideal. And you've got the captain, Christian Romero, coming out against the club on Instagram post-game as well. So I mean, the vibes are continuing to deteriorate, I think it's fair to say, at the moment. Can I actually, the Instagram post, which has now been deleted, is worth reading out, actually, since it has been deleted.
Let me read it to you. I've got it here. Romero said, apologies to all fans of you who follow us everywhere, who are always there and will continue to be. We are responsible. There's no doubt about that. I'm the first. But we will keep facing up to it and trying to turn the situation around for ourselves and for the club. At times like this, it should be other people coming out to speak, but they don't, as has been happening for several years now. They only show up when things are going well to tell a few lies. We'll stay here working, sticking together and giving our all to turn things around, especially at times like this. Keeping quiet, working harder and moving forward all together is part of football. Altogether, it will be easier. At Spurs official Hart. I don't know, what do you make of that, Barry?
Very Father Ted Golden Clerics Award, isn't it? And now the liars. I don't know who he was alluding to, should I?
Well, the assumption in the before times, everyone would have considered that this was a dig at Daniel Levy, but of course it can't really be that anymore. There's new liars in place. I think there should be this sort of rule of, like, if you've just lost quite an emotional game, just no posting from the team bus. Just leave it when you're on the team bus away from the ground. Maybe put the phone into a box or something and throw away the key. And it's easy for him to just. He can probably come out now and say, I was emotional after a bad day at the office, but it's not an ideal message from your captain. I do like Romero as a player and as the sort of resident head case in the group there, but I'm not sure the resident sort of hothead should be the captain. I'm not entirely sure that's a good sort of thing that you want. And I do also worry, on a more serious note, this wasn't by any means the worst Tottenham performance, but it is another game in which they've not won, they've not gotten a result. There is the sense that this is going nowhere under Thomas Frank, and I do think they're going to have real issues keeping hold of their best players this summer, because they're going to finish somewhere in mid-table under a coach who has not convinced in his first season. If you are one of the handful of players in that Spurs squad who have big clubs that would be interested in you, Romero being one of them, why would you stay this summer? Like, really, if you have a contract you can get out of at least. So there might be some transfer tugs of war at that club, I think, going forward the next couple of months.
Spurs are in an identical league position now after 21 games as they were last season, but they have 3 points more. And while I agree they played quite well last night, and it is possible to play well and still get beaten, this was textbook Dr. Tottenham. And I noticed the next league appointment in his book or in his diary is at West Ham.
No, it's home to West Ham, I think. And then they go and then Dr. Tottenham goes to Burnley. It gets worse, doesn't it?
Well, if you look at those two goals, I mean, Tell is basically kind of a pot shot from the corner of the area, which the keeper should save, and then Paulinho's overhead kick, which probably has a negative XG. I mean, another act of XG larceny from Tottenham. But I mean, the interesting thing is, right? Like, look at Spurs' top scorers from last season, all competitions. You have Brennan Johnson, 18, Solanke 16, Maddison 12, Son 11, Kulusevski 10, and then Pat Matasar on 6. That's 73 goals, and none of those players are available. And in their place, you have players who have never been a consistent goal threat. Kolo Muani has never been a consistent goal threat, nor has Kudus, or Tell, or Audebert. It's ironic, really, that when Frank came up with Brentford, they almost had this reputation as the entertainers of the Championship. But this Brentford team's always had reliable goal threats, and the team built around those goal threats. And Frank can't do that at the moment. I mean, Ange Postecoglou was getting killed last season because he didn't have a defence, and he eventually kind of knuckled down, got his defenders back, and won a Europa League. It's harder when you don't have any goals in the team. Richarlison's kind of obviously outperforming himself a little bit and has probably overplayed, but it's hard to just magic goals out of a team that doesn't have any goal scorers. That's a much harder trick to pull. And I think, you can quite easily say, okay, there are no patterns of play here. They don't really seem to know what they're doing in possession. But when you have a coach whose entire philosophy is built around getting the ball to proven goal scorers and getting them to score, and you don't give them any proven goal scorers, or you don't have them for whatever reason, I think that does kind of it does affect how they should be seen and the kind of job they're doing.
Yeah, I don't disagree. If they had some attackers, they'd probably have 6 more points or 9 more points, and then they'd be fine. But I might be wrong. I hope they hold their nerve, but they may not. More sad news, the former Spurs and England forward Martin Chivers has died at the age of 80. He scored 174 goals in 367 for the club, winning the League Cup twice, as well as the UEFA Cup. He scored 13 in 24 for England. Spurs said, it was with immense sadness we announced the passing of our legendary former striker, Martin Chivers. We extend our deepest sympathies to Martin's family, friends, and former teammates at this incredibly sad time. Rest in peace, Martin, one of the all-time greats. Yes, one of the players that my dad talks about, not as much as Jimmy Greaves, but, he's on that list with the Gilzeens of, this was bad, you should have seen Martin Chivers play, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, our thoughts go to his family. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Fulham 2, Chelsea 1. You had this on your main screen, Lars. Callum McFarlane's final game in charge. What an era. But firstly, another goal for Harry Wilson. He had one disallowed in the first half. He caused the red card. I think it's not a stretch to say he is one of the best players in the Premier League at the moment.
No, wonderful run of form for him. And he's such he is almost a bit of a throwback because he's not the fastest in the world, or he's not like a brute force physical guy, but he's clever, and he's got a lovely left foot, and he uses it really well. And I've frequently complained about not always enjoying watching Fulham. Not that they're bad, they're just not always very interesting. They're like quite good in a way that's not always interesting to watch, but currently, Harry Wilson, very watchable, very, very, very good, very good to watch, I have to say. And yeah, you say he forced the sending off. I mean, that really was the sort of the big moment of the game where Marc Cucurella, not sure what he was thinking. I mean, he is in theory supposed to be one of the more experienced players in this team, Cucurella. But yeah, decided to just grab hold of Wilson's arm and not let it go as he was running through. Wilson almost made it into the penalty area. Certainly, Marco Silva felt that he made it into the penalty area and that it should have been a penalty. Replays, maybe he let go just on the edge or outside the edge. It is what it is. But it was one of those moments that the red card sparked a bit of a melee where Enzo Fernandez, Tosin Adarbayo, and Cole Palmer were all booked, and Marco Silva was booked. So there was just anger on all sides there. The expected aggro was incredibly high. But this has been the story of Chelsea's season. I think that's their 5th red card in the Premier League. 5 red cards in 21 games is too many. You hamstring yourself massively by getting these players sent off. And while they did get back into it with that equaliser from Liam Delap, I didn't think it was undeserved at all that Fulham found a winner, and happy days for Fulham.
Yeah, and actually, this discipline issue, Barry, is it will have cost them points. It cost them points here. It probably cost them points at Old Trafford. I forget the other ones, and they would be in a really strong position. Perhaps not in the title race, but comfortably 4th. say, if they could have fixed this. And maybe, well, whether Maresca would still be there is a different question, I guess. Probably not.
I don't think he would. 7 red cards in all competitions is clearly a problem. It's not the kind of first impression you want to make on a new manager who's sitting in the stands. Not sure why he was sitting in the stands and didn't take charge of the team, but that's clearly an arrangement that was agreed on between Rosenior and his new/old employers. I loved Cucurella's hugely confident howl and protest of innocence in the face of absolutely incontrovertible proof, like seriously caught with his hand in the cookie jar and no, and dropped to his knees, arms outfolded, like Willem Dafoe when he got shot in Platoon. But yeah, it's something that has to be sorted out. But if you can't really tell a player, you can ask a player not to lose his head or not to do something stupid. But if they go and lose their head or do something stupid, I don't know what do you do about it.
So Cucurella did, of course, in one of the last international breaks, nearly hit a friend of mine with a golf buggy. Have to get that in yet again. So I took a screenshot. As he was making these objections to the ref, I took a screenshot of his face and sent it to my friend and said, "Is this what he looked like when he nearly hit you with the buggy?" And my friend confirmed that it was very much the same gesturing was going on. So he has form for this. I wonder with Chelsea, if they had just one slightly experienced, sensible defender back there, I just feel like they had 8 more points at least, because there's like they are not a bad team. There's a lot of good stuff going on there, but they need like an adult on deck.
That should be Cucurella, right?
Yeah.
Cucurella should
Yeah, well,
be
that's
that
the
guy.
problem. Yeah, if you look at their birth dates, logically it should be, but it very clearly isn't.
But it is a problem of maturity, and it's also a problem of culture, because you've signed these several dozen 18 to 24-year-olds with the specific message of like, this is your shop window. You have two or three good years, and we'll sell you on, and you get your move to your next club. This is your window, and I think you can see that urgency, almost that kind of desperation, and also the individualism. I mean, a lot of these red cards are basically very selfish, very selfish acts. They are not team red cards. They're acts of petulance, or they are stupid, Hollywood challenges from a ridiculous angle. And this also manifests itself in the way that they can't really control a game. When the time comes to when they need to slow the game down and or manage the situation, they can't do it because they don't have the collective emotional maturity to be able to manage those situations.
If they're all young, then maybe there'll be no one, old man in the dressing room to like talk to the younger players. So they'll just stay immature. They'll just be like those old people still going on 18 to 30s holidays, I guess. And Rosenior himself speaks very well, seems very mature, but is young and is inexperienced. It will be interesting to see, if he can if he can sort of stop this happening, I guess.
Before departing this game, again, having kind of not maybe praised Fulham enough for winning a derby, which I think means, or I know means a lot to them. Also want to flag up the header for Raul Jimenez to make it 1-0. If you haven't seen the highlights, because of course there were a lot of highlights yesterday, and Match of the Day was on very, very late. Unbelievable sort of old school number 9 striker's header, makes the move, gets in front of his defender, slightly optimistic cross into the box, and it's such a good header from Jimenez, and just vintage Jimenez.
You're right, and actually, it's now at the stage where we've completely forgotten about that head injury and what happened to him, that he can get back and head with such bravery. And you're right, he attacks it perfectly. The angle is brilliant, and the celebration was great too. That sort of like flying fish celebration. Enjoyed it tremendously. To the Etihad, Man City won, Brighton won. Their 3rd consecutive draw, Johnny. I mean, they can't afford to keep dropping points like this in the title race with Arsenal looking so good.
No, I wonder whether it's one of those where the title race kind of looked illusorily close for a bit, and now I think if Arsenal win tonight, it's 8 points, and they could very easily pull away from this point. With the players coming back, City, obviously, they've now drawn 3 in a row, and I wonder how much that late equaliser, that Chelsea late equaliser, took out of them, because there just wasn't a lot of conviction to them at all. Foden had 6 good weeks, maybe 4 really, really good weeks, and is now just going back to sort of twiddling around. And Brighton tried to give them so many chances. They just kept passing the ball to them in their own penalty area and saying, "Here, have another go." And then Haaland misses from 2 yards, and then Cherki can't get the ball out of his feet. So yeah, I think there's a real issue there with. I think for as much as Pep was talking up, we're over our difficulties. We've got over the difficult period. We're clicking again. I think for people who watch them every week, that was never really the case. There has always been that certain brittleness to them that occasionally the brilliance of a Foden or a Cherki or a Reinders or a Doku would paper over. And obviously, they are now slipping back.
City had loads of chances, but also in the first half, it looked like Brighton were just clean through. Every time you looked up, another Brighton player was in.
Yeah, Pascal Gross had a good header save by Donnarumma. Ferdi Kadioglu was put through by Reuter, and his shot was very weak, easy for Donnarumma. He should have done better. You had that when Caro Matoma beat, I think it was Mateus Nunes, down the left wing to latch on to I think Nunes misjudged the crossfield ball. Matoma squared it for Diego Gomez, who somehow missed. I don't know how he missed that. And then the ball broke to Matoma, who hit it against the foot of the post from a very narrow angle. It's a game I think both teams will feel they should have won, and a draw was probably fair. But yeah, there was a lot of chances for both. I think City had 2 cleared off the line as well. But Erling Haaland, I know he scored his 150th goal, quickest player ever to reach that. But in English football, but he's not playing that was a penalty. He's not playing particularly well at the moment, and when he's not playing well, City tend not to play well, and I think that's why they're dropping all these points. But yeah, very, very good night for Arsenal, who didn't play.
It reminded me of last season, City, to be perfectly honest, because earlier in the season, City have looked different. They've been sitting off more. They've counter-attacked much more, which has given them the kind of fast break attacks that Erling Haaland absolutely loves. And it's also been good for someone like Doku, who's had more more space to run into. Whereas here we were back to City playing a million square balls and really kind of boxing Brighton in, but then not having a lot of space to go into. That being said, yeah, Erling Haaland had a header cleared off the line, and he had at least 2 shooting chances in the box that you would expect him to score from close range that he kind of snatched at a little bit, which to me looks like he's almost trying a little too hard, that he's a little anxious, that he's shooting just a little too quickly, he's getting a little bit yippy. But the surprising thing was when you saw the lineup, you see they have a debutant in Max Alain and Kusanov playing next to him at centre half, and you think, oof, it's not going to be good, and you expect the problem they're going to have is defending, but and they did in the first half have some issues with Brighton beating that high line, but overall in the game it was City having possession, boxing Brighton in, and not finding an opening. So it was kind of odd. It was a throwback to last season for me.
James Milner came on, becomes just the 5th outfielder to play the Premier League after turning 40, along with Sheringham Giggs, Kevin Phillips, and Gordon Strachan. Oh, I see Strachan in a Coventry kit. I mean, he must have been over 50. Yes, Barry?
I remember Milner's debut for Leeds. That makes me feel so old. He was 16 years old.
Well,
I think he might have been the youngest ever Premier League debutant at the time.
Yeah, possible. David says, will playing 4 at the back ever work for Man United in the Premier League? Burnley 2, Manchester United 2. We did do a Manchester United special on Tuesday, so listeners probably hoping for some reprieve. Johnny, you've been writing about Sir Jim and Jason Wilcox. Even got praise from Mark Goldbridge on your article on X on this one. Lots of excellent shots of Wilcox and Omar Barada in the stands during this game.
I could top that actually. There's I've know someone who from the world of cycling who knows Sir Jim quite well, and apparently Sir Jim has read the article and loves it, which I quite rate actually, because considering that it was an article basically about how stupid he is. So it takes a certain self-awareness, I think, to appreciate that, which I appreciate in turn. Yeah, Burnley are they're not good, are they? But they do keep coming at you. They do keep trying. I think that the fight they've shown, despite basically going out and losing every week, playing really well and trying really hard and losing every week, I think that it's a credit to them that they still have the the wherewithal, I think, to keep creating chances and keep running at United, and I think they deserved that point. United are. It was never 4 at the back, 3 at the back. That was like, honestly, it was never the issue. I know they won with 4 at the back, and then they drew against Wolves, going back to the 3. But
like we've wasted a lot of podcasts if that wasn't the issue.
Well, no, but it is so much more about individual errors and players not tracking back and players not doing their jobs. I mean, ultimately, it's very easy to blame this. Oh, look at this system, but the 3-4-3 works. 3 at the back works. Has worked for a lot of teams this in this Premier League season. Leeds are playing it very well. Fulham are playing it. Crystal Palace play it very well. The system is not all is not the whole issue here. It's the fact that United have a lot of players who, for whatever reason, over a period of years, haven't been performing, and that is cultural.
Benjamin Sesko did score twice, Lars. And he had a brilliant header saved in the first half, and both his goals were sort of classic centre-forward goals, and you have probably watched him more than the rest of us. Do you have high hopes that this will be a big moment for him?
I thought the football writer Seb Stafford-Bloor made a very good point about Sesko, which is that he is a work in progress, and he looked like a work in progress in Germany as well. But because they paid so much money for him, people are expecting him to be the finished article. And this is something that's happening now because teams increasingly are spending huge sums for players who are still young. I mean, it used to be like when you were in your late teens, early 20s, there was an acceptance that you're not the finished article, and the big transfers would be guys in their mid to late 20s. But because teams have caught on to this resale value issues, amortization, all this sort of stuff, they're now paying huge sums for players who are still not quite there, who are still they're buying the potential. And because those players come with a huge transfer fee, the expectation is, because we paid this much, you have to be good right now. With Sesko, he's never been super consistent. What he has is a lot of good ingredients. He's a big, strong guy. He's fast for his size. He can hit the ball, but he's never been super consistent. And it's maybe we should be giving him and players other in that bracket a little bit more leeway. I can't quite decide if the 2 goals here were just a function of play him as a number 9 in a non-silly formation and put the ball in the box a lot, and he'll probably score more goals. That could be true. Could also be that it was against Burnley. I thought United did look better here. I liked seeing Bruno Fernandes in a more creative forward role, not deeper in midfield. Freed him up a little bit. But and they had 30 shots in the game, United. I think on most other days, this exact game would have ended with Man United winning it.
I would say Darren Fletcher went to bed last night wondering how on earth they didn't win, because they scored 2, they had 2 cleared off the line, they hit the post, they had a goal disallowed. Shea Lacey curled a beauty of a shot off the post. Any other day they'd have won this. And while I think Burnley do deserve praise for the effort to put in, that's about as good as Burnley play, and they still were almost overwhelmed.
I mean, obviously Darren Fletcher would have to ring Sir Alex before he went to bed to just find out if it was okay for him to go to bed. Anthony's equaliser is brilliant, Jadon Anthony's equaliser. Solskjaer, from your contacts in Norway, Lars, suggest that is a done deal. Is it? Are you dusting down the Solskjaer table? And why would you go back to Solskjaer? Why would they do that?
I should stress, in this case, my contact in Norway is reading the paper. But I would, if I had to hazard a guess, I would suspect that that's his agent letting it be known. But certainly the story in the Norwegian press has been that they've been discussing terms. I don't know, man. Like, as a temporary thing. So we all remember how it ended with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United, with the team not being able to, develop their own game in possession, with the team having a couple of humiliating defeats, with him having a very sad goodbye interview. Like, those were not happy times at Old Trafford. But there is something about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is that I know it's a cliche, and I know it's easy to be sarky and make fun of, but he does genuinely love the club in a way very few people in the football industry do. Like, he has a kind of selfless affection for Manchester United, which is almost like that of a fan, with a total lack of cynicism, which I think is very unusual in the football industry. You don't see it very often. He is someone who will always answer the call, and it's easy for snide people such as ourselves to make fun of that, but I'm going to make an effort not to, because maybe I'm getting older, but I think it's kind of sweet in a way. What he does well, Solskjaer, is, and I was in Istanbul for his first game in charge of Besiktas when they played Athletic Club. He'd just come in, he got them organised, set them up to play on the counter, and beat Athletic Club 4-1. And while he was in charge of Besiktas, he was the only manager who beat Galatasaray in Turkey that season. They also beat Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce. But the problem he had at Besiktas was consistently beating the lesser teams who came and sat back against them. So for Man United fans, this will be familiar. At United, he often did well in the big games, struggled to develop their own play to break down quote-unquote weaker teams. But I'm not sure that matters between now and the end of the season. If you want a pair of hands who can go in, the players love playing for him the last time. He was popular in the dressing room. He's not going to reinvent the wheel tactically, but to make players feel good about themselves just for a couple of months, you're not going to make a big appointment right now anyway, because lots of good big managers are available in the summer. I think there are worse ideas out there, to be perfectly honest, than getting someone who will be happy to take it for a few months, will then step away if asked. And I think United's got a really decent chance of making the Champions League. If you look at where the table is, it's very, it's very tight now. They are 7th, but they're just 2 points off of 4th. I think having him as a more experienced caretaker than Darren Fletcher, for instance, and as someone who will accept a short-term engagement. I guess the trouble is, what if he does really well?
Well, yeah,
what if he comes in, does really well, takes them to the Champions League, and the temptation to give him a 4-year contract will be there, and that probably wouldn't be a great idea.
I mean, I guess one other problem he had with Besiktas is he didn't understand the DNA of the club, because
that's true.
He understands the DNA of Manchester United. Along with Fletcher, Danny Murphy suggested Roy Keane, which is, let's face it, what we all want. To the Hill Dickinson, Everton won, Wolves won. Everton finished this game with 9 men. Which of the sendings off did you prefer, Johnny?
You can't beat a good hair pull, can you? Straight out of kindergarten. A lot of Everton fans out there trying to, he was just putting his hand on his back and there just happened to be hair there, and he just happened to close his fingers around the ringlets of hair, which is what any professional would do in that situation. And now we're going to have players growing ponytails willy-nilly in an attempt to game the system. And going up for aerials. Do you remember the fight they had at Old Trafford? Him and Gay, Idrissa Gana Gray.
Yes, yeah.
Keane basically starts that fight. Keane basically shoves him, and that's what Idrissa reacts to. There's always been that side to Keane's game, and I think all central defenders have this kind of. There's a slightly snide streak to them, little dig in the elbows, whatever. And occasionally, if the chance avails itself to just grab someone's hair, I think it's hardwired into a lot of defenders from a pre-camera age that you just try and get some leverage over the attacker whichever way you can. I don't know how he thought he was going to get away with it. It wasn't innocuous. It's really horrible having your hair pulled. If you've ever had long hair, I had long hair for a bit. If you've ever had it pulled, e.g. by a child, it's not very nice. It's basically like you can't move because someone's pulling your hair and it really hurts. That's my analysis.
Yeah. I thought it was quite funny that with one red, Moyes was quite happy to defend the indefensible, because that hair pull is quite clearly a red card. But then when he was asked if he wanted to defend Jack Grealish's 2 yellows and subsequent red, he went, no. As in, he has no excuse whatsoever. Jack hadn't pulled anyone's hair. He'd an act of dissent and then sarcastic applause. I love a bit of sarcastic applause, especially when someone gets sent off for it.
Joe Linton should arguably have been sent off for Newcastle before he got a chance to score, because he dives and then he sarcastically applauds the referee. And he probably should have, and he took I think it was Aronson out in the air earlier. So he probably should have had 3 yellow cards instead of 1.
And I will say, listen, it's stupid. I'm not arguing against the yellow card, and you shouldn't do it, and you should know better, as he's not a young guy anymore, Grealish. But he does get kicked around all day. Like, every game he plays, he gets kicked constantly. And he probably doesn't get quite as many of those free kicks as he wants, and maybe the frustration builds up. And, like, you know, the sarcastic applause is always daft. It's always very daft when you're already out on the booking. But I guess with him, I can kind of see a little bit why that happens.
Yeah, Wolves unbeaten in 3, Barry. God, they'll be gutted not to get a winner against 9 men. But
they should have. I mean, they were very unlucky. That brilliant shot right at the end from Hugo Bueno and Jordan Pickford pulled off a superb save to keep that out, pawed away. I thought Wolves would win this game, I must say. And when I saw the Keane had been sent off, I was thinking, oh, here we go. But Everton just about hung in there.
Yeah, Mateus Mane is incredible. By the way, he's going to be some player. He's like 18, I think. Who like the first touch for his goal was incredible. Afterwards, he said, "You know, I have got no illusions. I belong here. You know, you've got to have confidence. You belong here." And I think based on that evidence, he's probably too good for Wolves already. I don't think he belongs there anymore.
He doesn't need to point to the badge and go, "Here I am." It's like he should be pointing to his release clause. He should have his release clause on a T-shirt, shouldn't he? Just lift it up and go, 25 million. On Strand Larsen, Lars, lots of people want Strand Larsen. Should they want him?
He's a decent number 9. I mean, from a Norwegian perspective, it's unfortunate for him that he's hit around at the same time as Erling Haaland and Alex Solos, because he's not going to get a lot of minutes for the national team, because we have a plethora of big number 9s at the moment. I think he needs service. Yeah, he's not the fastest, but he's a handful physically, and he is intelligent. I think he's a striker who makes the most of the chances he does get, but he doesn't fashion a bunch of them for himself. So if you're a team that gets the ball into the box a fair bit, and you want someone to finish a reasonable amount of those balls into the box, he'd be good. Everton, for instance, be a good shout for Everton. You know, they keep having this issue of unfortunately, Beto and Barry just getting a lot of service in the area that they can't convert. I mean, that'd be a good match.
Yeah, must be so sad for Beto and Barry. Do you think they sit together at training, you know, in the canteen? No one else talks to the poor guys. It'll come good eventually, I'm sure.
Knocking over the ketchup.
One of them does a half an hour in the canteen, and then the little board goes up, and then Barry comes out. Beto comes on to get his lunch.
To the G-Tech, Thiago, meanwhile, can't stop scoring. Another 2. 16 is the most a Brazilian has ever scored in a Premier League season. He's got... Yeah, I know. It's an amazing stat. 5 in his last 2, and he should get some more, right? There's quite a lot of the season to go. I was chatting to Tim Vickery on the radio, who's saying that Brazil are a bit snobby about someone playing for Brentford, you know, as being their number 9. But, you know, they should look, and Brentford are 5th in the league. Like, don't pick Richarlison. Pick this guy. He's good. Brentford are better. He's great. Like, he's a really, really good player, Barry. I know that's not an original question.
Yeah, he scored 2 great goals last night. Should have had a third, probably. His finish where he latched onto that through ball from Janelt, I think it was. Great pass. And just the confidence he showed, just without breaking stride, to take it past Robin Roos and slot it home from a tight angle was brilliant. I don't know who else is in contention to be Brazil's number 9 outside of those who play in England. So I don't know what, but I don't think there's any competition for him as far as England-based Brazilian number 9s go. He's a great player. He's strong. He's quick. He's got good touch for a big man. 2-footed, you know, can shoot with both feet. He's really impressive. I think this game was all about Enzo.
Yeah, of course it was.
Penalty. Yeah. I mean, because Sunderland were only 1-0 down when he got that penalty. They weren't playing well. They deserved to lose this game. They looked tired. But what a penalty. And I applaud anyone for trying a Panenka, but you look such a chump when the goalkeeper just stands still and you just duff it straight into his hand.
Yeah, because the
And
Welbeck
fair
one,
play to Kevin Keller. He's a great penalty saver. And how did he know? How did he know
Yeah,
that's
I
what he
know.
was going to try?
like the Welbeck one was funny because it's the bar, but you're right. If the keeper is just standing there and catches it, it just looks daft. It looks so daft. And on Match of the Day, Jonathan Pearce was absolutely furious.
Yeah.
I reckon he was more furious than Regis Lebriz. I mean, he was like absolutely apoplectic. Not on my watch.
I really thought his criticism was over the top. That England cricketer, Jamie Smith, who got out to a really stupid shot, or just a pudding bowled at him by Marinus Labuschagne.
Oh God! Don't get me started.
And he played this incredibly stupid shot, and the ball was caught, and he was out. But I thought the abuse he got for that was completely over the top.
Yeah,
because
it's not his
let's
first
say
one.
he ain't the only England cricketer who's played a stupid shot on that Ashes tour.
You're absolutely true. And you can hear me, Ali Martin, Barney Ronay, Jeff Lemon and Emma John reviewing the whole Ashes series on the Guardian Ashes Weekly out tomorrow. But yeah, it's not all about Jamie Smith, but that was Timanus. Come on, not Timanus. Look at him. Palace 0, Villa 0. Any strong thoughts on this one, Johnny?
I interviewed Will Hughes last season ahead of the FA Cup final, and he said that some games are just good matchups for them, and he said Villa are a really just one of those teams that Palace love playing against. The styles just suit them, and I think if you look back, they do have a pretty good record against Villa. Obviously, beat them in the semi-final of the FA Cup last season.
Do you know who played in James Milner's debut? I just looked this up while we were talking about this game.
Yes, I do know. Hang on, I've seen this before. I do know.
It's very topical. I mean, obviously, a lot of people played in that game, and many of their names are funny. But there's one in particular, very topical.
Not Martin Chivers.
No, well, see, Jason Wilcox. Just man of the hour, Jason Wilcox was playing for Leeds. It was against West Ham United, playing for West Ham United. That game, Nigel Winterburn was in the side, as was Trevor Sinclair and Paulo Di Canio.
So there we go. That is our review of Crystal Palace 0, Aston Villa 0. Arsenal Liverpool tonight. We'll look back at that on Monday, of course.